The film begins with a man named Ryan who has just arrived at an airport in a Latin American country. He tries to find a taxi to take him to his destination, but the drivers refuse because he offers a very low fare. Ryan then starts walking and sees a driver who has been sent to pick him up. Along the way, the driver gives him a letter from someone named Jack. In the letter, Jack tells him that he can't meet him because he has work to finish. He also provides the access code to his house so Ryan can go inside and rest. When Ryan arrives, he is surprised to see Jack's house, which is enormous and beautiful despite being in the middle of the forest. After entering, Ryan explores the house and finds a bottle of red wine. He starts cooking while waiting for Jack. Shortly after, he hears a car arrive. Ryan goes out to greet him, and they hug immediately. It turns out that Jack is an old friend of his whom he hadn't seen in 12 years. They share deep conversations about their lives. Eventually, it's revealed that both are chefs who attended a culinary course together in high school. Ryan tells him that he has only worked at a roadside diner for minimum wage, while Jack works for an agency that provides catering services. The house they are in was rented by that agency for a dinner to be held the following night. Jack is the head chef for the event. Besides preparing the ingredients and the menu, Jack tells Ryan that his salary is many times higher than minimum wage, as he serves extremely wealthy clients from all over the world. The next day, Jack takes Ryan for a ride through a small town in a vintage car he just bought. They stop at a small restaurant where they meet a young woman named Alice. She used to work for a company but quit and now wants to travel the world with the money she has saved. Jack and Ryan tell her they are chefs and have been friends since culinary school. Alice wants to know which of the two cooks better. Jack invites her to his house where he and Ryan will have a cooking competition to impress her. Alice prefers Ryan's food, proving he is a better cook than Jack, even though Jack earns 100 times more than minimum wage. After eating and swimming together, they talk about Jack's watch, which has its own story. It belonged to Ryan, who lost it to Jack in a bet about 15 years ago. After their conversation, Alice and Jack decide to sleep together, while Ryan is left alone, reflecting on the meal he just prepared. The next day, Ryan receives a message from a man named Rabbit, who is chasing him for his debts. It's revealed that besides wanting to reconnect with Jack, Ryan had also traveled to escape from debt collectors and loan sharks who terrified him daily. Shortly after, Jack returns from dropping Alice off at her hotel. He wants to go out again because he has more work to do. After he leaves, Ryan secretly opens Jack's laptop, which is still on, and sees that Jack has a bank balance of $17 million, a product of his work as a chef for wealthy clients. That night, Jack returns and vents to Ryan about his life, which he considers miserable despite his wealth. Ryan wanted to tell him about his problems with the collectors and ask for a loan, but seeing the sadness on Jack's face, he decides to postpone the request and wait for a more appropriate moment. The next morning, Ryan is shocked to discover that Jack has ended it all. Instead of calling the police, Ryan reflects on his debts and finally decides to use the money in Jack's account to pay them off. To do this, he hides Jack's body as he doesn't know the PIN for the account and has no choice but to go to the bank in person. He orders a fake ID online in Jack's name but with his own face, which would arrive in a few days. That same day, Ryan receives another message from the loan shark, who this time sends a photo of his mother and threatens to harm her if he doesn't pay his debt. Under pressure, Ryan promises to pay him $50,000 and asks for one more week. With that in mind, Ryan becomes more determined to get the money. That night, he disposes of Jack's body in a nearby lake. The next day, when Ryan visits the restaurant where he was the day before, the loan shark contacts him again and threatens to kill his mother if he doesn't pay that same night. Ryan panics and begs him to respect their agreement, but the shark doesn't believe him and says he will come to the house that night. When Ryan returns, a car is already parked in the yard. He meets two people named Imogen and Maurice. It turns out they don't know what Jack looks like physically and mistake Ryan for him. When they ask him about the preparations and the menu, Ryan calmly responds, taking advantage of the fact that he is also a chef and sees an opportunity to settle his debt by asking for part of the payment up front. Finally, Ryan breathes a sigh of relief, seeing his debt settled and his mother safe. However, he now has to pretend to be Jack and take on all the responsibilities as the chef. Ryan wasn't worried at first about the menu Imogen requested, but when they asked him to cook human flesh and choose a human to cook, Ryan was completely stunned and bewildered. He discovers that the agency is actually a secret organization that provides human meat dishes for wealthy clients. If the event failed, or his food wasn't good enough and the guests were disappointed, Ryan would be killed that same night. Imogen, suspecting Ryan's behavior, prevents him from escaping. She informs him that the next day's guests are extremely wealthy people willing to pay $500,000 for a single dinner. They have an extensive global network, so if Ryan tried to flee, his life would be in danger. It is finally revealed that the reason Jack committed suicide was that he couldn't bear to be involved or trapped in this job. The next morning, Maurice wakes Ryan up to take him to the church they had visited the day before. There, they fix their attention on a little girl who is with her grandmother and decide to follow them to a bridge. Maurice and Ryan lose track of the woman when she enters an alley. They eventually come across a young tire repairman. The repairman asks them what they are doing there. Seeing the young and healthy worker, Maurice decides to make him the new target. He pretends his car is broken down and offers the repairman money to check under the vehicle. Just as Maurice was shooting the tire repairman, the little girl and her grandmother, whom they were following, reappeared, this time accompanied by a local police officer. The officer approached to ask why Morris and Ryan were following the girl. Morris, experienced and having worked for the agency for a long time, had an alibi ready for this type of situation. He posed as a representative of a large company that was inspecting the location for the construction of a hotel and showed a convincing business card. Back at the house, Imogen asked why they had only brought one body. Maurice explained that he had to give his business card to the police officer who approached them. Hearing this, Imogen understood the situation, and they then took the tire repairman's body to the basement, where she ordered Ryan to prepare the ingredients for cooking. Ryan reluctantly obeyed, trying to avoid suspicion. Imogen added that he must cut out the man's tongue, as the guests had requested a dish that required a specific body part. After a while, Ryan finished cutting the body parts. Maurice came down to the basement and helped Ryan prepare the ingredients. Ryan couldn't believe what he had done. If he had called the police when Jack committed suicide, none of this would have happened. He thought again about escaping using Jack's car. While driving a few meters from the house, he accidentally ran over a gardener. When Morris arrived, Ryan claimed the brakes had failed. However, Morris was not easily fooled. Ryan ended up confessing his desire to escape. Surprisingly, Maurice wasn't angry, nor did he report him to Imogen. Instead, he warned him not to think about escaping again and explained that no one had ever successfully fled the agency. Their network was extensive and operated globally, allowing them to find anyone, including Ryan. After hearing this, Ryan understood he had no other choice and decided to continue. Ryan returned to the kitchen, prepared his utensils, and informed Imogen about the menu for the dinner. As night approached, the guests began to arrive, brought by Morris. However, during the busy preparations, Imogen was informed that 2 police officers were at the door. To avoid suspicion, she allowed them to enter. The officers were Detective Ruiz and Officer Gallo, who had been seen that same day by Maurice and Ryan. Maurice was not present at that moment. The detective pulled a photograph from his pocket and explained that he was looking for the man in the picture because he was his nephew. The person in the photo turned out to be the tire repairman they had murdered that day. According to police information, Maurice and Ryan were at the scene when the young man disappeared. The detective asked for Ryan's whereabouts and requested to meet him. After being escorted to the kitchen, the detective met Ryan and asked if he had seen the tire repairman. Ryan replied that he didn't remember. Imogen intervened and said that Ryan was an architect in her real estate company. The detective then asked to see a detailed design and a list of materials they would use to build the supposed hotel. Ryan's answers were vague and implausible, which made the detective suspicious. He decided to stay to talk to Maurice. Imogen, seeing Ryan's nervousness, tried to control the situation and quickly offered the officers some meat soup. Unbeknownst to them, the soup was made with the meat of the same tire repairman they were looking for. While in the kitchen, the detective enjoyed the soup, not knowing it came from his own nephew. He asked what kind of meat it was, as it had a particularly delicious taste. Ryan replied that it was a mix of pork and lamb. The detective asked to use his phone in a corner of the room and began asking several questions about architecture. Ryan, clearly flustered, could barely maintain his composure. Fortunately, a noise from another room indicated the arrival of more guests, which distracted everyone. Before attending to the new guests, Ryan was scolded by Imogen for not following the script and instructions correctly. Later, Imogen met with the detective, who was now skillfully interrogating Maurice. However, Morris managed to deceive the detective with his alibi. Before leaving, the detective approached the guests to say goodbye. One of the diners from Japan invited him to dinner, but Officer Gallo decided to leave early as he had another commitment. Shortly after, Maurice informed Imogen that there was an unexpected guest at the entrance who wished to see Jack. The guest turned out to be Alice, who had been out with Jack. Imogen allowed her to wait for a moment, hoping she would leave soon. Ryan was surprised to see Alice, as he didn't expect her to appear at such an inappropriate time. While watching Ryan cook, Alice asked about Jack and why he wasn't in the kitchen. Seeing the watch on Ryan's wrist, she became suspicious and quickly decided to leave. Meanwhile, a guest requested to speak with Jack to congratulate him on his incredibly delicious dishes. He also asked for a special dessert with tongue. Ryan went back to the kitchen to prepare it, but was horrified to discover that the tire repairman's tongue had herpes. They needed to find a new tongue to serve the guests. Just then, Alice returned, saying her car had broken down and she needed a taxi. Ryan served the tongue sashimi to the guests. We can imagine whose tongue it was. Discreetly, Ryan sent a message to the detective to meet in the bathroom. There, he confessed that the meat they had eaten was from the tire repairman. The detective, horrified, felt nauseous and vomited after learning the truth. Together, they devised a plan. The detective said his goodbyes, pretending he was going home, but he actually went to meet Ryan in the basement. Upon arriving in the basement, the detective was shocked by what he saw. He tried to call the police, but his phone was charging inside the house. Although Ryan had it, the panicked detective couldn't remember his colleagues' numbers. The only solution was to retrieve his phone. While the detective waited in the basement, Ryan went in search of the phone. Just as the guests were about to leave for their respective countries, Morris began to suspect Ryan's movements. He went to the basement and found the detective. Without hesitation, Morris killed the detective with a chainsaw. When Ryan returned, he found the detective dead in a pool of blood next to Alice's body. Even though Ryan had tried to expose the whole truth, Maurice acted as if nothing had happened and asked Ryan to clean up the mess. After the event, Ryan saw Imogen writing emails and inventing versions of the victims' deaths. Ryan asked her how she could do all that while smiling. Imogen replied that she was used to it and had the support of the agency, which was very professional in handling these matters. The next morning, Ryan was still awake in bed, trapped in a state of insomnia, daydreaming, tormented by all he had done. Imogen then informed him that there were many orders from satisfied clients and that the head office had recommended him to be the chef for an even bigger event with a very high salary, intended to serve ultra-rich and elite guests. Imogen also transferred the remaining payment to Ryan, a sum exceeding $4 million. She then informed him that the agency's next event would take place in Africa. Suddenly, Maurice got up and injected something into Ryan's neck. He explained that this device would allow the agency to track and control all his movements, no matter where in the world he was. Resigned, Ryan packed his belongings and left for London, Jack's hometown, driven by the same driver who had picked him up at the beginning of his journey. Meanwhile, Morris took care of destroying all evidence, burning Jack's and Alice's cars at the airport to erase any connection. At the airport, Ryan encountered other passengers waiting for their flights. Among them, he met a man who introduced himself and began to tell him his story. The man complained about his low-paying job and the terrible hotel where he had been put up. He envied Ryan, an apparently successful chef with a huge salary and housed in luxury facilities. What he didn't know was that Ryan enjoyed none of it. He was not happy with his situation or the dark path he had become involved in. And so, the film ends with Ryan trapped in a life of luxury, yes, but one marked by guilt, fear, and a lost freedom he can never recover.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.